Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers,
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. This is episode 364, and it's a bonus show. One we hadn't really planned to bring you, but we had so much material this week that we thought we'd bring you a little bit extra. So we brought you one of our extra podcasts, and now an extra with another main show. Now this episode, to kind of paraphrase a well-known football cliche, it's going to be an episode of two halves. Part 1 is going to be looking at Vancouver Whitecaps. Part 2, the Canadian Premier League Championship game. So we're going to start things off in this first part with some Whitecaps chat. Now it's been a quiet week in Whitecaps land again, as is to be expected. The season is over. We're recording this episode on Halloween, October 31st, and today was the last day of the Whitecaps post-season training camp. Goodbyes were said, farewells were bid to the players that were still hanging around. But we've got some interesting audio from today to bring you. Now, some people were kind of wondering what the point of having this post-season training camp was. Was it to evaluate some players? Well, not really. It was more a case of just keeping his core group together that is signed and maybe working on some things and just keeping them sharp ahead of what is a very, very long off-season. And for the Canadian national team players in particular, it was keeping them sharp ahead of the second game that is coming up against the US in Florida on November 15th. So at training on Thursday, there was a few of us that got a chance to speak to Mark after that last training session. I'm going to bring you a question now from Sam Rowan from 86 Forever, who just asked Mark just what he had hoped to get out of this 3-week post-season training camp.
Mark, you've alluded a lot to the importance of continuity going into next year, and I know you spoke about the importance of these training sessions post-season. Have they gone how you would have liked them to, and you think it's been a good, productive step for 2020?
No. The training sessions after the season was much more to keep the guys fit and keep going, because there's a culture in North America of, I don't know if it comes, some players, their development is 4 months because they played college and they just know a 4-month season. Then USL, NASL, MLS are short seasons. If you look at the international level, there's no preseasons of 3 months. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a challenge MLS needs to think about. To have a preseason of 3 months is incredible. It's too much, and even us now we're finishing our last day today, and tomorrow's November 1st, and from tomorrow to the preseason, it's 2 months and a half. At the eye level, a player, if he gets 1 month, he's very, very lucky. Players that play Champions League and play for their national team normally get 3 to 4 weeks. We're going to have 2 months and a half. Players doing what? Following a gym program. That's not good. That's not good for the sport in Canada and the United States. And that's why we tried throughout these sessions to at least keep them playing and being in a soccer environment as long as we could.
And then there could be a strike at the end of that as well.
I don't know, guys. I'm really not. I didn't hear about any of that. If not, Nathan didn't tell me anything. I don't know.
So MDS there. And we're going to have a little bit more from MDS later in the show, talking about CPL. And tune in on Sunday as well, because I got a chance at training on Thursday to sit down with Marc Dos Santos afterwards. We sat down for an hour, we had a really good chat. At least part one of that is going to be in the next episode 365 of the AFTN Soccer Show. Haven't decided yet if I'm going to bring you the whole chat in one episode or whether we're going to kind of space it out over the next 2 episodes. But definitely tune in for part one. A lot of interesting things were talked about. We looked back at the season, what he's maybe learned about himself, looking ahead as to what additions he's going to make. Obviously without naming players' names, but kind of where he's looking positioning-wise and just how easy it is to use some of the mechanisms in MLS to get players or how difficult it is. And a lot more besides. So some very interesting chat had with Marc. So tune in to the next episode or 2 and you'll hear what he had to tell us. But the players that were there by the end of the training camp were getting fewer and fewer every day. We're kind of making a joke like that. Every day we turned up, there's a couple of players less. Freddie Montero wrapped up his camp at the end of week 2. He went back to Colombia. Some of the players like Ali Adnan and Bom Huang didn't make it back from their international break. They were given a little bit of extra time off. But one player that was back and just kind of eager to get into it was Jake Nerwinski. Sign a new deal. He's definitely going to be a staple of the Whitecaps defence. We'd speculated, would Jake be a guy that they might use to dangle as trade bait with him being an American domestic player? With Scott Strasser not being brought back, it looks like Jake is the guy that they want as the right back. He's going to be here for a couple of years. He's got his contract extension. He's just got engaged. He's going to be travelling to Ireland actually with his fiancée. His fiancée's from Ireland, so he's going to be doing that at the end of this training camp as well. So he's looking forward to that. And it's great to see Jake back. He feels he's got a point to prove, and he talked a little bit about that and a few other things after that last training session on Thursday. Here's what Jake had to say.
All right, Jake, last one of the season here for us, and we haven't had a chance to talk to you. I haven't anyway, since your option got picked up, so just emotions after knowing that you'll be sticking around for another season.
Yeah, I'm happy. I have some unfinished business here. This year was tough, last year was tough, and I think we're building in the right way. We got a few key pieces that we're missing, and hopefully, we get that figured out. We got a good core group of guys, and the coaches want to win, we want to win. So next year we're gonna be fired up to go.
Individually and as a team, where do you think you guys can get better? And obviously you got your first goal for the club, so a little bit of area improvement there, but where do you think you could be doing better?
Yeah, I can get a few more goals, I think, next year, probably more than one, right? No, I want to be able to help out in the attack a little more than I did this year. I didn't have any assists this year, and I think I could do better in that aspect. I think as a whole we need to be better defensively. We gave up a bunch of goals. That's not just the back four. I think that's a team as a collective. And I think we're just missing a few pieces. Maybe it's up top, maybe it's another playmaker to go alongside with Yordi and Imbaum. To complete that midfield to really make us dangerous.
What does the offseason look like for Jake Nerwinski? You said you were going to take some time to go away with the fiancé, but obviously you probably keep a keen eye on yourself physically and mentally getting ready for the next season.
Oh yeah, I love the offseason. I know our strength coach is making sure I don't get too big because I love to be in the gym, so I'm not really going to take a break in that respect. I'm going to go home, probably rest a few weeks, then just get ready for the season, really, start working out again.
You look at the season and it's so strange in that just look at the goals against and it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
But you look at the performances and some of the best performers in the team and they're all on the defensive side. Is that just weird?
Yeah, I think most of our defenders had a good year. You had Daniil, who I thought was very solid for us. Eric's a great player, and we know Ali has the skill set that's unmatched by really any left back in the league. And I think it's just a collective thing. I don't think it's individual breakdowns. I think it's us as a team, as a whole, being able to stay focused for 90 plus minutes.
Yeah, you talked about your own sort of attacking and productive output this year.
Yeah.
Was there kind of a feeling though that the defence maybe wasn't getting the help it needed, so you couldn't get forward enough?
Yeah, I think in some games we kind of trapped ourselves with, just kind of hunkering down in defense in our 18. I think we got stuck defending in our final third for a majority of games for long periods of time. And that kind of, it tires any team out, really, if you're chasing the ball the whole time. So I think we need to establish, a better playing style where we keep the ball more, where we're more calm on the ball, we're more aggressive going forward, because you can't have a team that just defends for maybe if it's 60 minutes at some points, it's hard to do. It's hard to keep a team off a score sheet if you're doing that.
Jake, did you get a chance to watch the MLS semifinals? Obviously Seattle and who beat Toronto? Seattle and Toronto.
Yeah, you've forgotten them already. Yeah, who cares, right? Two of the worst teams for us to make it on.
Beating two of the better teams in the league this season that most people would have picked to go all the way to the finals. Do you have any predictions for the finals, and how do you look at those?
Listen, if I was a betting man, I would lose all my money. There's no way I'd bet those teams to make it to the finals. They went into the two hardest places, to play, really, as away teams, and they came out with wins. And I think it's cool for the league that it's last 3 out of the 4 that's those two teams. I think I don't even know I don't really care because I want them to tie. Can they tie? No one wins. No one lifts the cup. Is that fine? But I think it's going to be tough for Toronto to go and do it again in another crazy atmosphere in Seattle.
Jake, Max Crepeau, he kept the team in a lot of games this year. How much does he meant to the team?
Yeah, he was huge this year. I think he was our most valuable player, and we gave him that award, and it's rightfully so. He deserves it. We hope that we don't have to rely on a goalie like that, and I think he doesn't want to be relied on like that as well. He knows that he's a big deal to this team, but I think going forward, we want to make it a little bit easier on him.
Have you seen the best of Max Crepeau? Do you think he can take it to another level next year? You work with him every day in training. You know the guy really well.
Yeah, he's a great professional. He comes out here. I think he's pissed off right now that he just lost a small-sided game, and I don't think he's over it yet. So I think that just kind of shows you his character and his will and his drive. This is his first year in MLS, so I think he's still got a lot more to go. He's still learning, and he's going to build off of this.
Thanks, Jake.
Okay, thanks. Enjoy the off-season.
Take care, guys.
So Jake Nerwinski there. Feels he's got a point to prove when he comes back, wants to work a little bit more on the attacking side. That was something Marc Dos Santos did say in an interview. If he could have combined Scott Strasser and Jake Nerwinski into a kind of composite player, he would have his ideal right back. For Marc, Sutter attacked so well, but there was maybe some things lacking on the defensive side. For Jake, his defensive part of his game was solid, but he needed to get a little bit more out of his attacking side. And for a defender, that's not a bad thing. You want to be defence first. But the way that Marc wants to play and he wants to have these attacking wing backs, Jake does maybe need to add a little bit more to his game next season. And as I asked him there, I do feel that part of him not doing that was because they had so much defending to do. And I think with a better midfield coming in, midfielders that's maybe got some better defensive responsibilities, I think we will see a much better and a more attacking Jake Nerwinski in 2020. And I, for one, am looking forward to seeing that. But that is the Whitecaps post-season training camp wrapped up now, as we said. Still going to be a busy time coming up, though, in Whitecaps land. Everyone is awaiting the announcement of the new technical director. We're not sure when that's coming. I don't think it's going to be next week. Might be the week after. They still have to sort some things out. Everyone is eagerly waiting to see who it's going to be and what direction that maybe is going to take the club forward as well. Then you've got some of the MLS mechanisms coming up that come up every post-season. Just a little bit earlier this year because the MLS Cup is going to be on November 10th. That horror show that we didn't want, Seattle against Toronto. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next episode. But the MLS off-season calendar is an interesting one. November 11th to 13th is a 2.5 day trade window. So the trade window opens. MDS has talked about his desire to get a little bit more MLS experience in the squad. And that is something that I talked to him about when we had our sit-down chat. So listen to what he says for that when we bring you the next episode. So it opens at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time on November 11th, closing on the 13th. There's been a 10-week roster freeze. MLS clubs may sign and trade players within the league in that window, and you do feel that the Whitecaps are going to be busy. What are they going to give up? Are they going to have to give something up? Is it going to be allocation money? Is it going to be a player or two? Could it even be their draft pick? We'll soon find out. Now, November the 13th is when the trade window closes. Closes at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so 5 p.m. Pacific. After that, MLS clubs may no longer sign or trade players until the conclusion of the 2019 expansion draft. November 14th is when clubs have a deadline to submit bona fide offers to players, so that could be when we find out if Daniil Henry is definitely coming back to the Whitecaps or not. November 19th is the MLS expansion draft. That will not really affect the Whitecaps in terms of losing a player, because they got a player selected last year by FC Cincinnati, so they will not be losing a player this year round. Who knows though? Could they maybe do a deal with Inter Miami or Nashville, whereas they maybe select a player that the Whitecaps want and then do a deal for them for who knows what? November 21st is the club deadline to exercise options. Then you kind of come up to some of the stuff that maybe isn't too exciting. November 25th is the end of year waivers. Same day is when free agency opens. November 26th, the MLS re-entry process begins in stage 1. There's not usually a lot of action in that time because you're having to re-sign a player on the contract that they've currently got. So a lot of people wait for that and they want to renegotiate a new deal with them. December 3rd is then stage 2 of that, where they can sign players and then they've got time to maybe renegotiate new deals with them. So a very, very busy time still coming up in MLS. Marc Dos Santos and his management team are going to be travelling all over as well, scouting. So there's probably going to be some player announcements within the league, maybe some new additions come as well when they can do that. Exciting times ahead, and it's going to be a busy time on the AFTN Soccer Show. No off-season for us. We are going to be with you every week, all season long. But that is it for the Whitecaps chat in part 1 of tonight's episode. We're going to be back talking CPL after this.
Hi, I'm Marc Dos Santos, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Welcome back. 13 tombs there. And as this is a bonus episode of the AFTN Soccer Show, we thought we'd also bring you a bonus track from our October Artist of the Month from Methil in Fife, the second best thing to come out of Methil after East Fife, 13 Tombs. That was Haunted Road for Halloween, recording this episode on Halloween night. You might be able to hear some fireworks going off in the background. And we are expecting some fireworks in Calgary on Saturday afternoon in the second leg of the Canadian Premier League Championship game. Forge FC travel east from Hamilton into Calgary to take on Cavalry FC with a 1-0 lead from that first game last Saturday in Hamilton. Things got a bit chippy in that one. There were 2 sending offs. Only one of them really for anything chippy, which was, of course, Tristan Borges. That red card, along with the one issued to Cavalry's Joel Waterman, were both appealed by both teams. Finally, after a few days, we got word through today on Thursday that Waterman's appeal was turned down. He will be suspended and miss this second leg. But Tristan Borges, the leading scorer in the CPL, the man tipped by many to be the league MVP. It was a ridiculous red card. It should never have been issued. Has been overturned. He will be fit to play in this game in Calgary on Saturday. Big piece back in the attacking mix now for Forge FC, and Cavalry will have to adjust their game plan for this one accordingly. But it should be an absolute cracker of a match. So we're joined now by AFTN's man in Calgary, Scott Strasser, who is looking forward to the second leg on Saturday, just to talk about a few things coming out the first leg and what we can maybe expect at this second leg on Saturday. So thanks for joining us, Scott.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on the show again. Always like to do this.
Must be a quite exciting time in the city just now, hosting the first ever championship game, second leg. You know, the trophy's gonna get lifted on Saturday no matter what. Do you get a feeling that there's a bit of a buzz in the city, or is it a case of maybe not too many people actually know that this is happening?
Maybe somewhere in between those two. I'd say a lot of people are aware of Cavalry in Calgary these days. Like, even the other day I was listening to a pretty popular FM radio station, and they brought up the game in Hamilton and how it was the second leg was going to be at Spruce Meadows on Saturday. And there are articles every couple of days in the city's two main daily newspapers, and the occasional piece of news on TV stations as well. So people who consume traditional media in Calgary definitely are aware. As to there being like a buzz in the city, I wouldn't say Cavalry has that much of a hold, at least not yet. But among Cavalry supporters and people who are fans of the CPL, there's definitely a lot of hype leading into this, and I think it will be a sellout regardless of what the general population of Calgary is thinking. So in that sense, I think it's going to be a successful day, regardless of how many people in Calgary are aware or how many care.
Yeah, I was wondering whether it would be a sellout or not, because I know the last couple of games to round off the season wasn't the best crowds. Obviously, the weather was not ideal either, and I had a look earlier in the week. I haven't checked actually the last couple of days, and it looked like it was maybe going to be between 4 and 6 degrees on Saturday. Does it look like it's going to be a pretty good weather?
Yeah, I think so. I saw a high of 10 on the iPhone weather app, which isn't the best. Let me just pull that up again, though. High of 8 and cloudy is what they're saying.
That's
so
not bad.
it's pretty good news, because it actually did snow here the other day, and it's been pretty chilly this week. But it seems like things are going to warm up at least a little bit for the second leg of the final, which, in my opinion, is good news. It bodes well for the size of the crowd, and it bodes well for the game as well. I think the players will be pleased with that.
The one thing that you definitely don't want is for the game to get ruined by the weather. You could argue possibly that the first leg was perhaps ruined by some of the incidents that took place in it. So let's have a little look back at the first leg and the stuff coming out of it. I guess the first thing to ask you is just what did you make of that first leg, watching from afar?
I mean, from a reporter's standpoint, it was incredibly exciting, right, because of all the controversy and the two red cards, and the ultimate result, a 1-0 win for Forge, really keeps the tie wide open, and it makes the second leg hard to predict, because obviously Forge had the advantage. If they get a draw in the second leg, they're the champions. If they win, or if Cavalry win even 2-1, Forge are the champions. So it makes for a less predictable game in the second leg, which I think is exciting. It was a little unfortunate to see how much of the spotlight was on the officiating in the first leg, and all the chat afterwards has been about those two big red card decisions. And you never really want to see a game of this importance or magnitude be about the referee, but that is the situation that we're in.
Yeah, and at the time of recording this on Wednesday night, there's not been any decision made yet about Joe Waterman's red card, which Cavalry appealed, and I guess the big talking point was Tristan Borges' red card, which we thought Forge would appeal. They have appealed, but there's been no word about that yet. And for it to have reached Wednesday night and there's been no word, it's a little bit strange. I know you can't rush into this, but these teams have to prepare for Saturday's game. And, I mean, with all respect to Joe Waterman, his is not a game-changing loss for Cavalry, but Tristan Borges is potentially a game-changing loss for Forge, or if he plays, it means that Cavalry have to adopt a maybe different approach for this leg. So hopefully that gets worked out soon. But if Borges is missing, do you see that giving Cavalry a massive boost for the second game?
Yeah, I think so. I believe Borges wasn't playing the last time Cavalry and Forge played in the regular season at Spruce Meadows, and that was a game that Cavalry won. There's no doubt he is Forge's talisman, and he's kind of their spark plug for generating offense. Obviously, he's the league's top goal scorer with 13 this season, and he has plenty of assists as well. And in that first leg, I mean, until he was sent off, like, he was the difference maker for Forge. Like, every time he was on the ball, he's, turning, he's going at his man, he's looking to make something happen. And he's been like that all season long. I mean, people are arguing that he's the CPL's MVP this season, and frankly, it's pretty deserved because he's been very, very good. And I mean, Cavalry. I asked everyone I interviewed at training on Monday if they how hard is Borges to defend, and is it a different game without him in the lineup for Forge? And the answers kind of varied. They all agreed though that he is a very good player.
Yeah, now talking about training up Monday, we ran the piece on AFTN just with some initial response after the game. Tommy and the guys were back training in Calgary. It felt, listening to the post-game chats and listening to what was said or reading what was said on Monday, there's a feeling that Cavalry know that they dodged a big bullet in that first game. Forge could easily be taking a 3 or 4 goal advantage into that if they'd got the penalty, if they'd taken better chances, if they had made most of having that extra man. You don't want to get too far ahead, you don't want to get too cocky, but did you get the sense that the Cavalry players, and Tommy alluded to this after in his post-game thing on Saturday, that was maybe their chance to do it, and do Cavalry feel they're now maybe favourites for this second game?
I think there's a lot of optimism on Cavalry's part. The mood was pretty upbeat at training on Monday among the players. There was still, laughter and smiling and lots of joking between players, but I do think there was that focus as well, that intensity, because they know what's coming. And absolutely, I think Cavalry were let off the hook a little bit because, Forge hit the crossbar 3 times. Forge just had his penalty saved by Carducci. I think Forge outshot Cavalry 18-3. And in the early stages of the second half, it just seemed like another goal was going to come eventually. And I think if that red card to Borges didn't happen, it would have been 2 or 3-0 at the end of the 90s. So Cavalry were definitely given a lifeline, which I think, they've been so solid at Spruce Meadows this year that they simply have to be optimistic, because I was looking over their numbers when they're playing at home, and they played at Spruce Meadows 19 games this season, and they only lost twice. And they only conceded 11 goals at Spruce Meadows in those 19 games while scoring 30. So obviously, Spruce Meadows has been kind to Cavalry, and when you factor in the state of the pitch, which is something I think other teams have struggled with. Tommy mentioned the altitude as something that Forge's players might struggle with. Yeah, so I think they do have, they're definitely going to enjoy that home field advantage in the second leg.
It was weird when I read that and heard about that. I was like, I never think of Calgary being at altitude. It's just never anything that really I didn't really notice it when I was there. When I went down to, for example, Salt Lake, I really did notice that you're at altitude and the air feels a bit different. So I thought that was a little bit weird. But the atmosphere at Spruce Meadow, the game that I took in July, I loved it. I hope to get back next year and see some more games there. It's such a good atmosphere. The crowd's going to be really fired up for this one. There's also, I think, a big advantage for Cavalry in that there's a number of this team that's been with Tommy for a while. They've won a PDL championship under Tommy. That experience must surely be something that they can use to maybe get them over the line in this second game.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but obviously at least 12 or 13 of the Cavalry players were on the Foothills team that won the PDL championship in 2018. So they've been in a situation before where it's, the championship game, you have to win it, and a lot of them twice, because obviously Foothills had been in the PDL championship in 2016 as well, and lost that one. Players like Zator, he was there. I think Pasquati as well, Nico Pasquati was there. So there's definitely that experience of knowing what it's like to prepare for a final. But again, there's a big difference between the CPL and the PDL in terms of, I think, the size of the crowd and the amount of media hype that leads into it. So it is a little bit of a different beast.
It's been such a good season for Cavalry. Tommy's talked about it a couple of times. He'd love to win the treble. He's got the spring, he's got the fall. Obviously, if they didn't win the whole thing, they're going to be disappointed. But do you think there's going to be a feeling that it's a bit of an anticlimax if they end up having done so well and not getting this? Is it going to be more than disappointing? It's going to be a little bit kind of soul-destroying for them to have come this far, and then ultimately they're leaving with nothing. Yeah.
I think it's more so of a soul destroyer than just a disappointment, because the format has been known all season. There was never any surprise that the CPL king, the champion, is going to be the one who wins the CPL finals. And obviously, Cavalry have known for all the way back in June is when they kind of clinched their berth in this final. So I think there would definitely be huge disappointment if they lost. But in my eye, like the season was such a success for Cavalry. I mean, winning the spring and the fall, those are the obvious successes. But the run to the semis in the Canadian Championship, knocking out the Vancouver Whitecaps, and then having the first CPL player called up to the Canadian men's national team, and just the culture of going to the games, going to Cavalry games that Spruce Meadows and Cavalry have built this year. I think you have to look at it as a success regardless. So we'll just have to wait and see, I think, and I have a feeling Cavalry will pull it out and they'll win on Saturday. But Forge is in my opinion as equally as good as Cavalry in many different areas of pitch. So they have a good chance too.
Yeah, for me, I think if Cavalry can take their chances, which there's been a few games down the wire where they've created so much and haven't scored, I think they'll do it. I spoke about this on our show on Sunday. I think they'll go out into a 2-0 lead. I then think Forge may pull back that away goal, but I do fancy Cavalry to go on and just win it. And I guess just before we do finish up, You've watched the CPL all season. You've been at a lot of games. What have you made of the league? How much have you enjoyed it? What have you thought of the quality of the CPL this year?
I was definitely pleasantly surprised with the quality. I used to watch a lot of U-Sport soccer, and I was expecting a leg up from that, but it is way better than I expected, and you can see that pretty much every team plays with tactical sophistication, and they're not just lumping the ball forward and chasing after it. And you can see the quality of the coaching. You can see the quality of the individual players. Some of the goals that we've seen from the likes of Manny Aparicio and Rodrigo Gatas for York 9, or that individual effort from Cadell Thomas for Forge, that goal that kind of went viral after he took the ball off a short corner and danced by 3 or 4 Valor defenders and put it in the net. The amount of quality of this league is a lot higher than I even hoped for, and I've been trying to get some of my friends who love soccer but only watch the Premier League in England to watch a game just so that they can see that, oh, okay, this is entertaining. It's fast. It's skilled. So I've definitely really enjoyed it. I'm really glad Canada has this league now, and I just hope it's something that continues to grow and continues to succeed and exceed expectations. Because obviously, I think with the Canadian men's national team right now, how good they are and how good they can be, if the CPL can complement that, then that's perfect.
And it could be a really good weekend for Calgary teams as well, because Calgary Dinos are out here in the Canada West Final Four. They just have to win one game and then they're going to be heading to the Nationals. So might be a very good day for Calgary teams.
That would be excellent, because I went to the U of C for 5 years, and it just seemed like the Dinos, the first round of the Canada West playoffs was it was just a curse. I mean, they were always playing Trinity Western, and I think a few times it went to penalties, and a few times Trinity Western beat them in regulation time, but it just seemed like they couldn't get past that hurdle. So it's good to see that they're in the Final Four this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to calling that. It's stopping me coming out for the CPL Championship game, but I can't complain too much, I guess. Just before we go, Scott, let everyone know where they can find you online.
My Twitter handle is @ScottStrasser19. I post pretty much every article I write for AFTN on Twitter, and I also post photos from Cavalry games, because I'm usually taking photos during the games. And as well, I sometimes post just quotes from Tommy during the press conferences and things like that. So @ScottStrasser19, Strasser is spelled STRASSER.
And I've just realised I've been pronouncing your name wrong all season, so there we go.
That's okay. Everybody says Strasser.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Austrian, so it's Strasser.
Ah, I will not make that mistake again. So thanks for joining us, Scott.
But it's very cold out here in the snow, marching to and from the enemy. Oh, I say it's tough, I have had enough. Can you stop the cavalry?
AFTN's Scott Strasser there, talking about all things Cavalry Forge FC. He's going to be heading along to the match on Saturday for us, so watch out for his post-game stuff on Saturday night into Sunday as well. He'll have some reports, some post-game reaction, and some photographs from the game as well. And as we mentioned during that interview, that was recorded on Wednesday, so before the news came through that Borges is now going to be available to play in this one. Talked about it there, he's such a key player for Forge FC, arguably the league MVP, but another man that can make a very strong case for being the league MVP, certainly make a strong case for being Cavalry's MVP this year, is goalkeeper Marco Carducci. Marco, player we know so well here at AFTN, we've watched him through the years from a 14, 15-year-old in the Whitecaps residency programme, talked to him so many times over the show in the years, delighted for him that he's getting this opportunity, delighted for the season that he's had. Leads the league in clean sheets with 9, one ahead of Forge FC's Tristan Henry, who has 8. Made 23 appearances so far for Cavalry this year, registering 65 saves, which is the third highest throughout the whole of the CPL. And he has been a very key player in Cavalry's strong season. That play earned him a call-up to the senior Canadian national team. The first CPL player to earn a call-up, so that was a great honour for Marco as well. Really delighted for the season that he's had. I had hoped to maybe catch up with him for a chat this week. Time did not allow for that, but thankfully, Scott Strasser managed to catch up with Marco at Cavalry training on Monday, so we're going to bring you his chat with him now.
First question is what the dressing room was like after that first leg. What was the mentality like? What was the overall mindset?
Obviously, we go into every game wanting to win. So, we're disappointed in that sense for sure. But you know what? We knew that this was a two-legged tie. So all things considered, coming out of there in a position where it's a one-goal game and we have an opportunity to bring them back home, we know how good we are at home, and we're ready for Saturday. It's as simple as that.
Was there relief that it was just one, considering how much offense they generated?
To be honest, yeah, a little bit. I think I'd be lying if I said differently. Like, the game obviously could have gone worse in a lot of ways, but again, resilience of this team. A lot of things got thrown at us: the red card, the penalty, a difficult place to go and play, and obviously, again, credit to Forge. They're a strong team. We weathered that storm, and again, it's a one-goal game. We have 90 minutes at home, where we've been dominant all year long, and now we have a week to prepare for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The penalty save, was that something that you were prepared for, him going down the middle? Or
you know what, I mean, I dove to my left thinking he was shooting that way. So fortunately, I stayed up long enough. I watched the ball long enough, and it was close enough for me just to make a little adjustment with my feet. And in that moment, I thought if I can make a save and keep the momentum at bay, because obviously that's a very the red card and a penalty could really change the momentum in the match. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I was able to do enough to keep it out.
And obviously, Borges came up with quite a great strike a few minutes later. Mm-hmm. How difficult is he to play against and defend against?
Yeah, he's shown all season long his qualities. I think we have several players who've done the same. That they pose a threat, and someone like him, he can change the game with his qualities. So we're disappointed to concede right before halftime, and obviously, if we can get in at 0-0 after what had happened, that's a decent spot to be in as well. But we know his quality. There's moments we've already reviewed the film and we've gone through the ways that we stop that, we prevent that. But we have our game changers, and he's one for them.
Considering it is 1-0 heading into the next leg, obviously you're going to have to keep them from scoring, because they get one, all of a sudden you need 3, more or less, or to win by 2. Does that make things difficult, knowing that you need to focus on defense but also know you need to score?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of the two-legged games, right? We know that we're in a situation where if we can keep a clean sheet, then obviously that's ideal. We've been solid all year long. Obviously, as a team, I think we've collected the most clean sheets, and we know at home we're difficult to play against. We know that it goes both ways, right? We're going to need to score, but again, when we come back home, we know it's our fortress. We know we have our fans behind our back. It's going to be difficult. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to be cold. We have the altitude here, everything like that. And, we'll take anyone at Spruce Meadows on any day. And I think with all those things considered, if we can do it anywhere, we'll do it at home.
Marco Carducci there, talking to Scott Strasser about that first game in Hamilton at the weekend and what he's expecting from the second one in Calgary this Saturday. Good luck to Mark and all the Cavalry guys in Saturday's game. I'm going to make no bones about it. I want Cavalry to win this one. I feel they deserve to win this one. They've won the Spring Championship. They've won the Fall Championship. For me, it's only fitting that they win everything. All the marbles, do the hat trick. And if they're going to do it, you feel that Marco's going to be a key player to help them get there. A lot of Whitecap connections, of course, on Cavalry FC. Want to wish David Edgar luck as well, though, for Forge FC, a player we always had a lot of time for here at AFTN. Spoke to him a number of times over the years as well. If Cavalry don't win it, I'll be happy for David Edgar to win it as well. We're certainly looking forward to that game on Saturday, and I know a lot of people listening to this will be as well. Sadly, unlike the first leg, which was shown on national TV on CBC, this game is only being shown live on One Soccer. I think that's a very big missed opportunity by the league to have your showcase game where the trophy is getting presented only shown on a streaming service that the vast majority of soccer fans in this country are not signed up to. A replay is going to be getting shown. It's going to be shown here in Vancouver at 11 p.m. on Saturday night. Again, disappointing time slot. But if people have managed to avoid the result, which is a good chance they will have, that they can at least take that in at 11 o'clock and see the game. Or if you want to watch it again, you can do that as well. And the problem is, And we've talked about this a lot in the show, and I'm not going to bang on to it again. For me, you need to grow the league, and you grow the league by getting it out there to the biggest audience you can. I know Media Pro signed a 10-year deal, gave the league some very much needed money and stability, but for the final, you have to get it out there. To grow interest in the game, in the league, it just makes no sense to me. You kind of wonder just how many games people have seen. I have won soccer, and I'll be honest, the amount of live games I've ended up watching has been quite limited. I've ended up watching the highlights on YouTube instead, just because there's so much football to watch and it's trying to find the time to watch it. And that's actually an issue that Marc Dos Santos has as well, because I was asking him just how much attention he has paid to the CPL this season, and he had some interesting things to say about that. Here's what MDS had to say. I wanted to just quickly ask you about the CPL Championship game.
Yeah.
I don't know how much CPL stuff you've watched this year, if you've had a chance to do it, but
I watched a lot the month we were preparing for Calgary, but I didn't. Now with the recruiting, I'm not. The only thing I'm following is maybe 2 or 3 possible players that we could be interested. But watching full games, I have to watch other full games right now, and we have a scout that takes care of the USL, CPL, and college. And I just ask him, if there's anything coming up that you really think needs all of my attention. So he would come up sometimes and say, "Look, Mark, you really should look at this guy." And now I would look at a game or that. But am I involved in watching a lot? No, not right now.
So MDS, watching some players in the CPL, you can maybe speculate which ones they might be, but don't think he'll be watching the game live. Maybe he'll catch the highlights. And just a reminder, if you're not already one of our AFTN Extra podcast subscribers, the latest episode of that came out on Wednesday. It was a CPL Championship special, where we brought you audio from Saturday's game from both head coaches and 4 of the players as well. 3 Forge players, including Kyle Becker and Nick Ledgerwood from Cavalry FC. It's a 52-minute episode. Some really good stuff in there, some interesting stuff from the guys after the game. Obviously, we recommend if you're not an extra subscriber, remedy that now. It costs $30 for the year. You're supporting AFTN. It's a donation to the site, and in return, we're going to give you as many of these extra podcasts that we do. We try to do at least one a month. Bring you press conferences. A lot of it is non-Whitecaps related. It's like CPL or Canadian men's national team. We've had some good feedback. Folk are enjoying it, and our numbers are growing all the time. So please support AFTN, support our extra podcasts. Visit aftn.ca and you'll find out how. It's $30 for the year, $3 a month. Help support the site, and we'll give you a little bit something extra in return. But that is it for this episode of the AFTN Soccer Show. Hope you've enjoyed it. It's a little bit of a bonus one. We hadn't planned to do this, but we had so much audio that we just had to bring this to you, and hope you've enjoyed it. We will be back on Sunday with the next AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio, 101.9 FM, CITR.ca online. That should be at our normal time of 11 o'clock. We'll be looking at that CPL Championship game. We're talking MLS playoffs, and we've got our sit-down chat with Marc Dos Santos. If you can't stay up late for that one, the podcast will be out on Monday, so watch for it in all your usual podcast places. I'm Michael McCall. You can follow me on Twitter at AFTN Canada, on Instagram at AFTN Soccer, and on YouTube at AFTN Canada. Don't forget as well, if you can, to leave a nice review for us on iTunes. You can give Scott Strasser a follow on Twitter at Scott Strasser. That's SCOTTSTRASSER 19. Scott Strasser 19. And for our usual co-hosts, give Zach a follow at Zachary AM and Steve a follow at Whitecaps Beat. So until next time, thanks for listening. Take care, and mon the Cavs!
when you're listening on some far-flung corner of the globe to the World Service of a Saturday afternoon. Crackly reception, interference, cosy, marvellous. Somehow comforting, isn't it? You know, legendary names, fathers and sons on the terraces, cheesy peas at half-time, pint for dad, mum's at home making the tea. Oh, everything's all right with the world, isn't it? Saturday afternoon is football.